Hello, my name is Rey Mertelio from CLT21, A Automotive. This report is about how the torque converter of an automatic transmission works and what kind of fluid used in an automatic transmission by means of their types. Uh, Bago ko simulan, ano nga bang torque converter? A torque converter is a type of fluid coupling the transfer rotating power from a prime mover, like an internal combustion engine, to a rotating driving load in a vehicle with an automatic transmission. The torque converter connects the power source to the load. Uh, how the torque converter of the automatic transmission works. The torque converter casing connects to the flywheel, spinning at the same rate as the crankshaft. Within the housing of the turbine, the impeller of the centrifugal pump effectively flings the transmission fluid into the pins of the turbine that in turn spin or transmit the torque into the transmission. It's a bit difficult to grasp the concept of how fluid can provide the power to something as substantial as a vehicle. A pump helps achieve torque control that works by sending fluid around the torque converter, determined by the rotation of the crankshaft. Within the housing is a turbine that rotates as the pump fluid comes into contact with the turbine binds. This helps gauge the amount of torque that gets to the transmission to the input shaft. The stator is the buyer that brings the fluid straight back into the turbine instead of into the pump, increasing efficiently in the system. When the vehicle is idling, the rate of which the transmission fluid pumps into the turbine is slow, meaning very little torque gets to the engine through the transmission as the crankshaft rotates faster with more throttle rotating the flywheel. Fluid is propelled faster from the pump to the turbine, forcing the turbine to rotate faster, allowing for more torque to the transmission. It is important to note that the inner working of the torque converter are still somewhat of a mystery. The basic mechanics might be understandable, but the intricate calculation and engineering behind it are best understood with someone with advanced knowledge in fluid mechanics. Uh, what types of transmission fluid should you use? Automatic transmission use a special type of oil called automatic transmission fluid or ATF. This fluid has a number of duties in the transmission, including lubrication, cooling, and clutch application. ATF even provides the connection between the engine and transmission through a hydraulic coupling called a torque converter, and when squeezed between the clutches, ATF acts a glue, providing additional friction and holding capacity to drive the vehicle. So ATF is a very versatile fluid. That's why maintaining the fluid can be so critical to transmission life. Uh, a few a few years back, there were only two types of fluid in the market, Type A and Type F. Conventional wisdom said that Type F was for Fords and Type A was for everything else. Conventional wisdom was not all that accurate even back then, and today is completely out the window. These days, there are four main types of fluid on the market, and there are dozens of bands and styles to choose from. So how do you know what your transmission uses? This is a way to make sure you're using the right type of ATF is to check the owner's manual, and it tell you exactly what ATF the manufacturer recommended for your car. So you may also find the recommendation of the dipstick. Either is a reasonable resources for determining the right type of fluid for your transmission. Fluid types. Here's a list of the different types of fluids and the basic difference between them. Type F. Yes, it is. It's still around. As a quick walk through at your local parts store will attest. The only thing is almost nothing uses it anymore. Type F was designed for ports that use bronze clutches. The last trans made with bronze clutches was the Tusimatic, that's used in the early 70s. Unless uh, you're talking about your car doesn't ask. Ah, Dextron 3 or Mecron. This is one of the most common fluid on the market. Uh, Most GM and Ford units call for this type of ATF as well as many imports. If your owner manual recommends any form of Dextron or any Mecron other than Mecron 5, this is the fluid you want. Types of fluid. HFM, styles fluid. HFM stands for highly friction modified. It's a fluid that provides different friction characteristic than Dextron 3 Mecron. This fluid appears under a number of different names, including Searler's ATF plus minus, also called 7670. Another manufacturer that use HFM ATF include Honda, Acura, Jeep Eagle, Hyundai, Toyota, Lexus, Saturn, Sterling. Are the fluids interchangeable? They should be. Logic dictates there are, but to be safe, always to always use the specific fluid that manufacturer calls for. Synthetic fluids. A number of manufacturers have begun to discontinue the use of originally based fluids in favor of synthetic fluids. Preliminary tests have shown that most synthetics have similar friction modification characteristics to Dextron 3 or Mecron, but with improved resistance to heat, cold, oxidation, and shear. In simple terms, synthetics last longer. Synthetic oils are one reason why many manufacturers are also beginning to eliminate the transmission dipstick. Their feeling seems to be ATF will last longer. Caution. Ford's levels their synthetic fluid Micron 5, which can be a bit confusing. If the manual says Micron 5 is calling for the synthetic fluid, if the name is Micron without B, uh, that's the regular Dextron 11 Micron ATF. Thank you and God bless you.